Captain Elena Vasquez looked out the small window of her ship as Kepler Station grew larger in front of them. The massive space station spun slowly in the darkness, its lights twinkling like stars. Hundreds of ships of all shapes and sizes moved around it like busy insects around a hive. "There it is," she said to her crew. "The biggest trading post in this part of the galaxy." Her first officer, Marcus Chun, stood beside her. He was a thin man with graying hair and worried eyes. "Look at all those ships, Captain." "Makes our old girl look pretty small," Elena smiled. Their ship, the Perseverance, was indeed small compared to the giant vessels moving around the station, but she was proud of it. The ship had carried them safely across thousands of light years. It might not look like much, but it was home. "Small but mighty," Elena said. "We've made it this far, haven't we?" The third member of their crew, Sarah Kim, was busy at the control panel. She was young, maybe 25, with bright eyes and quick fingers that danced over the buttons and switches. "Docking request sent, Captain. They're giving us Bay 77 Alpha." Elena nodded. "Take us in, Sarah. Nice and easy." As they got closer to the station, Elena could see the other ships more clearly. There were sleek silver vessels that looked like they were made of liquid metal. These belonged to the Zephyrians, a race that was famous across the galaxy for their advanced technology. Their ships had no visible engines or weapons, but everyone knew they were the most powerful vessels in space. Next to them were the huge, dark ships of the Corvan Empire. These looked like floating cities made of black metal. Gun turrets stuck out from their sides like thorns. The Corvans were warriors who had conquered dozens of worlds. Their ships could destroy planets if they wanted to. There were also the strange, living ships of the Ashanti Collective. These vessels looked like giant sea creatures with smooth, curved hulls that seemed to breathe. The Ashanti had learned to grow their technology instead of building it. Their ships could heal themselves and even reproduce. And then there was the Perseverance. Elena's ship looked like it had been built from spare parts found in a junkyard. The hull was patched with different colored metal plates. Some were rusty. Others were scratched and dented. The engines were big and clunky, held together with bolts and welding. Pipes and cables ran along the outside of the ship where they should have been hidden inside the walls. "We're getting some looks," Marcus said, pointing to the other ships. "I can see aliens at their windows, staring at us." Elena could see them too. Tall, pale Zephyrians with their large, dark eyes. Massive Corvans in their battle armor. The graceful Ashanti with their flowing robes. All of them were watching the human ship with expressions that Elena knew well. They were laughing. The Perseverance docked with a loud clang that echoed through the ship. Sarah shut down the engines, and the familiar hum that had followed them across space finally stopped. "Well," Elena said, "let's go make some friends." The docking bay was huge, with a ceiling so high it disappeared into shadows. The floor was made of some kind of smooth, black material that reflected the lights above. Aliens of all kinds moved around, loading and unloading cargo, talking in languages that sounded like music or grinding metal or rushing water. As soon as Elena and her crew stepped off their ship, they became the center of attention. A group of Zephyrians approached them. First, they were tall and thin, with pale blue skin that seemed to glow softly in the station's lights. Their leader was wearing robes made of some shimmering material that changed colors as he moved. "So," the Zephyrian said in perfect English, though. His voice had a strange musical quality. "These are the humans we have heard so much about." Elena stepped forward. "I'm Captain Vasquez of the trading vessel Perseverance. We're here on a peaceful trading mission." The Zephyrian looked past her at their ship and made a sound that could only be described as laughter, though it sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Peaceful, yes. I can see why. That ship could barely harm a cargo drone. Other aliens began to gather around them. Elena could hear whispers and what sounded like chuckling from different species. "Is that really a spaceship?" asked a Corvan warrior. He was nearly 8 feet tall and covered in thick black armor. His voice sounded like rocks falling into a deep cave. "It looks like scrap metal held together with hope." "Hope and prayer," added another Corvan, and they both laughed. A sound like thunder. And Ashanti glided over to them. This one had 4 arms and skin that shifted between green and blue like the surface of a pond. When it spoke, its voice was soft and flowing like water. We are curious about human engineering. Do you truly travel between stars in that ... device? Elena felt her cheeks getting hot, but she kept her voice calm. The Perseverance has carried us safely for over 10 years. She may not look like much, but she gets the job done. 10 years? Zephyrian looked amazed. Our ships are replaced every 2 years as we improve our technology. How do you maintain such primitive equipment? With hard work and creativity, Marcus said, stepping up beside his captain. Something you might not understand. The aliens looked at each other with expressions that Elena could not read. But she could feel their amusement. A new voice cut through the crowd. Attention, all beings. Welcome to Kepler Station. All newly arrived vessels will now undergo standard security and customs scanning. Elena looked up to see a hologram floating in the air above them. It showed information about all the ships that had just docked. When it came to the Perseverance, the crowd grew quiet. Human vessel Perseverance, the voice continued. Length, 62 meters. Mass, 800 tons. Crew, 3. Technology level, primitive. Hull composition, mixed metals, some of unknown origin. Engine type, chemical rockets with ion drive. Assist, estimated value, 12,000 galactic credits. The silence lasted for exactly 3 seconds. Then the laughter began. The Zephyrians made their wind chime sounds. The Corvans rumbled like earthquakes. The Ashanti created flowing notes that sounded like water over rocks. Even aliens that Elena had never seen before joined in. 12,000 credits, wheezed a small, furry creature that looked like a cross between a bear and a rabbit. My personal transport pod is worth more than that. Chemical rockets? Gasped a Zephyrian. We stopped using those over 1,000 years ago. Mixed metals of unknown origin, laughed a Corvan. Probably because they found it in a garbage dump. Elena felt her hands clench into fists, but she forced herself to stay calm. Sarah looked like she wanted to disappear. Marcus was turning red, but he stayed quiet. The hologram continued with the other ships. The Zephyrian vessel was listed as being worth over 50 million credits. Its technology was described as quantum crystalline matrix with probability engines. The Corvan ship was valued at 30 million credits and had neutronium armor with dark matter weapon systems. The Ashanti ship was worth 20 million and used biotechnological living systems with regenerative capability. Perhaps, said the Zephyrian leader, humans should stick to staying on their home planet. Space travel seems challenging for your species. Or maybe, suggested a Corvan, they could find work as janitors on real spaceships. The laughter grew louder. Elena could see aliens from across the docking bay turning to look at them. Some were pointing. Others were taking pictures or recordings with their devices. Come on, Elena said quietly to her crew. Let's get our cargo and get out of here. But as they started to walk toward their ship, the Zephyrian called after them, Wait, humans, we are curious. How exactly does your ship work? Do you pedal it like an ancient bicycle? Do you use solar panels and hope for the best? Maybe they just push it really hard, suggested another alien, and the laughter started again. Elena stopped walking. She turned around slowly and looked at the crowd of aliens. They were all so confident, so sure of themselves, so certain that they knew everything about technology and space travel. Our ship works just fine, she said, her voice carrying clearly across the docking bay. Better than fine, actually. We've traveled further and faster than most ships twice our size. We've been places that would surprise you. And we've done it all without needing to replace our equipment every 2 years because we actually know how to build things that last. The aliens looked at each other uncertainly. The laughter had stopped. But how? Asked the Ashanti. Your technology appears to be centuries behind ours. Your ship looks like it should fall apart at any moment. Elena smiled. That's what makes us human. We don't give up. We don't need everything to be shiny and new. We take what we have and we make it work. Sometimes that means our ships look a little rough around the edges, but looks can be deceiving. Impossible, said the Zephyrian. Our sensors clearly show that your ship is primitive. Our scanning technology is the most advanced in the galaxy. It cannot be wrong. Then maybe, Elena said, still smiling, your sensors don't know everything. She turned and walked toward her ship, her crew following behind her. The aliens watched them go, their laughter replaced by puzzled silence. As they reached the Perseverance, Sarah whispered, Captain, do you really think our ship is better than theirs? Elena looked back at the crowd of aliens who were still staring at them with confused expressions. Sarah, there's a lot about our ship that those scanners didn't detect. A lot that even we don't fully understand. But that's a story for another day. She pressed her hand against the hull of the Perseverance. To the aliens it probably looked like rusty metal, but Elena could feel something else, a warmth, a vibration, something that their advanced sensors had somehow missed. For now, she sighed, let's just focus on our trade mission. Let them think what they want to think. Sometimes being underestimated is the best advantage you can have. Above them, the station's scanning systems continued their work, probing every ship in the docking bay with beams of energy that could penetrate any known material. The scanners examined the Zephyrian ships and found exactly what they expected. They scanned the Corvin vessels and confirmed their specifications. They analyzed the Ashanti bioships and recorded their living technology. And then they turned their attention back to the small, rusty human ship. The first scan showed exactly what the public display had announced. Primitive technology, basic materials, simple construction. But then something strange happened. A junior technician, a young Zephyrian named Crix, noticed that one of the deep structure sensors was showing unusual readings. He ran the scan again. Thinking there must be an error, the results were the same. And they were impossible. Crix stared at his screen, his large dark eyes growing even larger. According to his instruments, there was something inside that rusty human ship that defied every law of physics he had ever learned. He looked around the scanning station, wondering if he should tell someone. But his supervisor was busy with other tasks, and Crix was just a junior technician. Who would believe him? Besides, it had to be a mistake. The humans were primitive. Everyone knew that. Their ship was a collection of scrap metal. The public scans had proven it. Crix hesitated for a moment, then quietly saved a copy of the unusual readings to his personal files. Maybe he would study them later when he had more time. He had no idea that this simple decision would soon shake the foundations of galactic civilization. Crix stared at his screen for the third time that day. The numbers still made no sense. He rubbed his large, dark eyes and looked again. Nothing had changed. The deep structure scan of the human ship showed impossible readings. According to his instruments, the rusty hull was not just rusty metal. There were layers underneath that his scanners could barely detect. Energy patterns that moved in ways that violated basic physics. And somewhere deep inside the ship, there was a power source that was putting out more energy than a small star. This cannot be right, Crix whispered to himself. He was alone in the scanning station. His supervisor, Dr. Zellick, had gone to lunch with the other senior scientists. They were probably still laughing about the primitive human ship. Crix had been left to monitor the routine scans of all the docked vessels. Every other ship scanned. Exactly as expected. The Zephyrian vessels showed their quantum crystalline matrices operating perfectly. The Corvan warships displayed their neutronium armor and dark matter weapons in perfect detail. The Ashanti bioships revealed their living technology growing and healing itself, but the human ship was different. Very different. Ix pulled up the scan data again. On the surface level, everything looked normal. Basic metal hull. Simple chemical rockets. Primitive life support systems. This was what had been displayed to the public and what had caused all the laughter, but the deeper scans told a different story. Layer 1 below. The surface showed metal alloys that Crix had never seen before. They seemed to change their atomic structure depending on what the scanners were looking for. When he scanned for strength, they appeared stronger than neutronium. When he scanned for flexibility, they became more flexible than living tissue. Layer 2 showed energy conduits that ran through the ship like a nervous system, but they did not carry electricity or plasma like normal ships. Instead, they carried something that his instruments could not identify. The energy moved in patterns that reminded Crix of thought patterns in a living brain. Layer 3 was where things became truly impossible. The scanners detected spaces inside the ship that were bigger than the ship itself. Rooms that existed in dimensions that should not be there. Corridors that folded back on themselves in ways that hurt Crix's head to think about. And at the very center of the ship, something that the scanners could barely detect at all. A power source that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once. It was generating enough energy to power a small planet, but somehow containing it all within a space no bigger than Crix's fist. Krix ran the scan for the 4th time. Same results. He tried scanning other ships to make sure his equipment was working properly. Everything else scanned normally. Only the human ship showed these impossible readings. Dr. Zelek needs to see this, Crix said to himself, but even as he thought it, he hesitated. Dr. Zelek was the chief science officer of Kepler Station. He was one of the most respected scientists in Zephyrian society. He had helped design the scanning systems that Crix was using. If these readings were real, it would mean that everything Dr. Zelek believed about technology and physics was wrong, and if the readings were false, it would mean that Crix was either incompetent or crazy. Neither option seemed good for Crix's career. He decided to try one more approach. He accessed the station's historical scan database and looked up other human ships that had visited Kepler Station. There were not many. Humans were new to interstellar travel, and most other species considered them too primitive to bother with. But there were a few records. A human cargo ship had docked 3 months ago. Another had visited 6 months before that. Crix pulled up their scan results, the same impossible readings. Every single human ship showed the same impossible technology, hidden beneath a primitive exterior. How is this possible? Crix whispered. He heard footsteps in the corridor outside. Dr. Zelek was returning from lunch. Crix quickly saved all the scan data to his personal files and cleared his screen. He pulled up the normal, surface-level scans of the human ship just as Dr. Zelek entered the room. Dr. Zelek was tall even for a Zephyrian, with pale blue skin that glowed softly in the station's lights. His robes were made of the finest materials and changed colors as he moved. He had been the chief science officer for over 20 years and was known throughout the galaxy for his work on advanced scanning technology. How are the scans proceeding? Crix? Dr. Zelek asked. All normal, sir, Crix replied, hoping his voice sounded steady. The Zephyrian vessels show perfect quantum matrices. The Corvan ships display their usual dark matter systems. The Ashanti bioships are healthy and growing. Dr. Zelek nodded. And the human ship? Crix gestured to his screen, which showed the surface-level scan results. Primitive technology, as expected. Chemical rockets, basic metal hull, simple life. Support? Nothing interesting. Dr. Zelek looked at the display and made the wind chime sound that passed for Zephyrian laughter. Humans, it is almost sad how far behind they are. Their ship is barely worthy of being called a spacecraft. Yes, sir, Crix agreed. Though the words felt like lies in his mouth, Dr. Zelek moved to another workstation to check on other station operations. Crix waited until he was out of earshot, then quietly accessed his personal files again. The impossible scan data was still there. He spent the next hour trying to find explanations for what he was seeing. Maybe there was a malfunction in the deep structure scanners. Maybe some kind of interference from other ships. Maybe the human ship was carrying cargo that was causing false readings, but every test he ran came back the same way. The scanners were working perfectly. There was no interference. And the impossible readings were coming from the ship's structure itself, not from any cargo. As the day shift ended, more scientists arrived for the evening rotation. Among them was Dr. Vash, a Corvan scientist who specialized in weapons technology, and Dr. Flowingstream, an Ashanti expert in bioengineering. Both were friends of Dr. Zellick and shared his opinion about human technology. Zellick tells me we have a human ship docked today, Dr. Vash rumbled in his deep voice. I would like to see these primitive engines for myself. The biological systems should be interesting too, Dr. Flowing Stream added in her water-like voice. I have heard that humans still use mechanical life support instead of growing their own. Dr. Zellick called up the surface-level scans on the main display. All three senior scientists looked at the results and made sounds of amusement. Chemical rockets, Dr. Vash shook his massive head. We abandoned those technology level 5,000 years ago. And look at this life support system, Dr. Flowing Stream observed. Mechanical air recyclers and water purifiers? Why do they not simply grow plants to do this work? Crix watched the three scientists discuss the human ship's primitive technology. He wanted to tell them about the deeper scans. He wanted to show them the impossible readings. But he could not find the courage. These were some of the most respected scientists in the galaxy. They had designed the very systems that were producing these readings. If Crix told them that their scanners were detecting impossible technology, in a human ship they would think he was either lying or incompetent. Besides, maybe he was wrong. Maybe there was some explanation he had not thought of yet. The evening passed quietly. The three senior scientists finished their review of all the docked ships and prepared to leave. Dr. Zellick stopped by Crix's workstation before departing. Good work today, Crix. Keep monitoring the scans throughout the night. If anything unusual appears, contact me immediately. Yes, sir, Crix replied. After the senior scientists left, Crix was alone again with his impossible data. He pulled up the deep structure scans one more time and studied them carefully. The more he looked, the more convinced he became that the readings were real. The patterns were too complex and too consistent to be errors. The energy signatures were too stable to be malfunctions. And the dimensional anomalies were too precise to be random interference. Somehow, the humans had built technology that was more advanced than anything else in the galaxy. But they had hidden it beneath a facade of primitive equipment. But why? Would they do such a thing? Why would they allow other species to mock them and treat them as inferior? Crix thought about the human captain he had seen earlier. Elena Vasquez had seemed calm and confident even as the other aliens laughed at her ship. She had not acted like someone whose technology was inferior. She had acted like someone who knew something that everyone else did not. Maybe she did not. As the night wore on, Crix made a decision that would change everything. He could not tell the senior scientists about his findings. They would not believe him. But maybe he could find other people who would. He began searching through the station's personnel files. There were scientists from dozens of different species working on Kepler Station. Some of them were young and open-minded like himself. Some of them might be willing to listen to impossible ideas. He found Dr. Buzz, a young Corvan engineer who worked on the station's power systems, Dr. Ripple, an Ashanti biochemist who studied alien life forms, Professor Brightfeather, a member of a bird-like species called the Avrans who specialized in theoretical physics. All of them were junior scientists. All of them had access to scanning equipment. And all of them had reputations for being curious about unusual phenomena. Crix began composing a message. He would send the impossible scan data to these scientists and ask them to verify his findings. If they could confirm that the readings were real, then maybe together they could figure out what the humans were really hiding. But as he typed, Crix realized he was taking a huge risk. If the senior scientists found out that he was sharing classified scan data with other researchers, he could lose his job. He could be banned from ever working as a scientist again. On the other hand, if he was right about the human technology, this could be the greatest scientific discovery in galactic history. Crix stared at his message for a long time. Then he thought about the human captain again. Elena Vasquez had stood in that docking bay and faced the mockery of dozens of alien species. She had not backed down or apologized for her ship's appearance. She had stood her ground and suggested that their advanced Sensors might not know everything. Maybe it was time for someone to find out if she was right. Krix sent the message within minutes. He began receiving replies. Dr. Buzz wanted to know if the energy readings were real. Dr. Ripple was fascinated by the dimensional anomalies. Professor Brightfeather was already running his own scans of the human ship, and all of them were getting the same impossible results. The human ship was not what it appeared to be. Beneath its rusty, primitive exterior lay technology that defied everything they thought they knew about physics and engineering. As dawn approached on Kepler Station, a small group of young scientists sat in their laboratories staring at scan results that should not exist. They did not yet know what they had discovered. They did not understand what it meant, but they knew that everything was about to change. In her quarters aboard the Perseverance, Captain Elena Vasquez lay sleeping peacefully. She had no idea that her ship had been scanned dozens of times during the night. She did not know that a group of alien scientists had discovered her secret, but even if she had known, she might not have been surprised. After all, humans had always known that their technology was special. They had just never felt the need to show off about it. Soon, however, they might not have a choice. Dr. Zellick arrived at his office early the next morning, as he had done every day for the past 20 years. He was proud of Kepler Station's scanning systems. They were the most advanced in the galaxy, capable of detecting even the smallest details about any ship that docked with the station. He poured himself a cup of heated crystal fluid, a Zephyrian drink that glowed softly blue, and sat down at his desk to review the previous night's reports. Everything looked normal. The routine scans had proceeded without any problems. All the docked ships matched their expected specifications. Dr. Zellick was particularly pleased to see that the human ship had been scanned multiple times throughout the night. The results were exactly what he had expected. Primitive technology, basic materials. Nothing that could threaten the established order of galactic civilization. He was about to move on to other reports when his communication device chimed. There was a message from Admiral Kronak of the Corvan fleet, who was currently aboard one of the massive warships docked at the station. Dr. Zellick, the message read, I need to speak with you immediately about the scan results from last night. Meet me in conference room 7. Come alone. Dr. Zellick frowned. Admiral Kronak was not the type to request meetings about routine scan results. The Admiral was responsible for fleet security and only involved himself in matters of great importance. Dr. Zellick finished his drink and made his way to conference room 7. The room was small and private, used for sensitive discussions. Admiral Kronak was already there, waiting. The Admiral was a massive Corvan, nearly 9 feet tall and covered in thick black armor. His face was hidden behind a combat helmet, but Dr. Zellick could see his glowing red eyes through the visor. When Admiral Kronak spoke, his voice sounded like grinding stone. Dr. Zellick, we have a problem, the Admiral said without greeting. My security team has been monitoring communications on the station. Last night, several of your junior scientists were sharing classified scan data. Dr. Zellick felt a cold sensation in his stomach. What kind of scan data? Deep structure scans of the human ship. Data that should never have been distributed outside of your department. That is impossible, Dr. Zellick protested. Our protocols are very strict. Junior scientists do not have access to classified scanning procedures. Admiral Kronak placed a data pad on the table between them. See for yourself. Dr. Zellick picked up the device and began reading. The messages were from Crix to several other young scientists on the station. The data they contained made Dr. Zellick's blood run cold. The deep structure scans showed technology that should not exist. Energy readings that violated known physics, dimensional anomalies that defied explanation. According to these scans, the primitive human ship was actually more advanced than anything else in the galaxy. This must be some kind of error, Dr. Zellick said, his voice shaking. Our scanners could never produce results like this. The readings are impossible. That is what I thought too, Admiral Kronak replied. So I had my own technical team run independent scans of the human ship. We used different equipment, different methods, different energy frequencies. The Admiral placed another data pad on the table. These are our results. Dr. Zellick looked at the second set of scans. They showed exactly the same impossible readings. The human ship contained technology that was centuries ahead of anything the Corvins had ever developed. How is this possible? Dr. Zellick whispered. I do not know, Admiral Kronak admitted. But I know what it means. If these readings are accurate, then everything we believe about human technological capability is wrong, completely wrong. Dr. Zellick stared at the data pads, his mind racing. If the humans really possessed such advanced technology, why did they hide it? Why did they allow other species to mock them and treat them as inferior? There is more, Admiral Kronak continued. I contacted Fleet Command and requested access to scans of other human ships. Every human vessel that has been scanned in the past year shows the same impossible readings. This is not an isolated case. Dr. Zellick felt sick. As Chief Science Officer of Kepler Station, he was responsible for ensuring that all scan results were accurate and properly classified. If he had been unknowingly allowing primitive humans to dock ships that were actually more advanced than Zephyrian technology, it would be the greatest intelligence failure in galactic history. What do we do? Dr. Zellick asked. Admiral Kronak leaned forward. We bury this information deep. If word gets out that humans possess technology superior to our own, it could destabilize the entire galactic order. The Zephyrian Republic, the Corvan Empire, the Ashanti Collective, all of our governments are built on the assumption that we are the most advanced species in the galaxy. But the junior scientists already know, Dr. Zellick protested. They have seen the data, which is why we need to act quickly, Admiral Kronak replied. We need to convince them that the scans were errors, equipment malfunctions. False readings caused by unknown interference, Dr. Zellick nodded slowly. It made sense. The alternative was too dangerous to consider. What about the human ship itself? Should we prevent it from leaving? No, Admiral Kronak said firmly. That would draw too much attention. We let them complete their trade mission and leave as planned. But we make sure that these scan results disappear completely. Dr. Zellick stood up from the table. I will handle my staff personally. I will explain that the deep structure scanners malfunctioned and produced false readings. I will order all copies of the data to be deleted. Good, Admiral Kronak said. I will speak with the Ashanti representatives and the other species involved. We need to present a united front on this. The official story is that the scanning equipment experienced a cascade failure that produced impossible readings, nothing more. As Dr. Zellick left the conference room, he tried to convince himself that they were doing the right thing. The scans had to be wrong. Humans could not possibly possess technology that advanced. It was simply impossible. But deep in his mind, a small voice whispered that maybe impossible things were more common than he had believed. Dr. Zellick returned to the scanning station and called a meeting of all his technical staff. Crix arrived, with the other junior scientists looking nervous and worried. Last night, Dr. Zellick announced, our deep structure scanning array experienced a serious malfunction. The quantum resonance chambers became misaligned, causing the scanners to produce false readings for several ships. He looked directly at Crix. I understand that some of you may have seen these false readings and been confused by them. I want to assure you that the impossible energy signatures and dimensional anomalies that appeared in the data were nothing more than equipment errors. Crix raised his hand. Sir, I ran multiple verification scans. The readings were consistent across all tests, which proves how serious the malfunction was, Dr. Zellick replied smoothly. A cascade failure in the quantum chambers would produce exactly the kind of consistent false readings you observed. Dr. Buzz, the young Corvan engineer, spoke up. But sir, my independent scans using different equipment showed the same results. Dr. Zellick felt a moment of panic, but forced his voice to remain calm. All of our scanning systems are interconnected. A malfunction in the primary array would affect secondary systems as well. This is a known issue with quantum-based technology. Professor Brightfeather, the Aviran physicist, looks skeptical. Dr. Zellick, the readings showed technology that appears to violate several fundamental laws of physics. Are you saying that equipment malfunctions can create such specific and detailed false data? I am saying, Dr. Zellick replied firmly, that quantum scanning technology is extremely complex and can fail in unexpected ways. The false readings you observed were the result of a rare but well-documented type of cascade failure. He activated a holographic display that showed technical diagrams of the scanning equipment. As you can see, when the quantum resonance chambers become misaligned, they can create phantom energy signatures that appear to originate from the scanned object. These signatures can seem to show impossible technology, but they are actually artifacts of the scanning process itself. The junior scientists looked at the diagrams with confused expressions. The technical explanations were complex and difficult to understand. Dr. Zellick was counting on this fact to make his story believable. To prevent this problem from occurring again, Dr. Zellick continued, I am ordering that all copies of last night's deep structure scan data be deleted. The false readings serve no scientific purpose and could cause confusion if they were preserved. Crix looked troubled. Sir, should we not study these malfunctions to better understand how our equipment can fail? That research will be conducted by senior staff using carefully controlled conditions, Dr. Zellick replied. Junior technicians do not have the experience necessary to safely analyze quantum cascade failures. One by one, the junior scientists agreed to delete their copies of the scan data. They had been told by the chief science officer that the readings were false. They had been given a technical explanation for why the errors occurred. Most of them accepted the official story and moved on, but not all of them. After the meeting ended, Crix returned to his workstation and stared at his computer screen. He had agreed to delete the scan data from his official files, but he had not mentioned the personal backup copies he had made. Dr. Zellick's explanation sounded reasonable, but something about it felt wrong. Crix had been working with quantum scanning equipment for 3 years. He had seen real equipment malfunctions before. They produced random, chaotic data. They did not produce the precise, consistent readings he had observed from the human ship. Crix looked around the scanning station. His colleagues were busy with their work, apparently satisfied with Dr. Zellick's explanation. But Crix could not shake the feeling that they had all been lied to. He quietly accessed his personal files and reviewed the backup copies of the scan data. The readings were still there. Energy signatures that defied physics. Dimensional anomalies that should not exist. Technology that was more advanced than anything in the known galaxy. If these readings were real, it meant that humans possessed capabilities that could change everything. It meant that the entire galactic order was built on false assumptions. And if Dr. Zellick was trying to cover up this information, it meant that the senior leadership of multiple species already knew the truth and were actively hiding it. Crix made a decision that would have consequences he could not imagine. He copied the scan data to a portable storage device and hid it in his personal belongings. Then he began planning how to get this information to people who might be willing to listen. Meanwhile, similar scenes were playing out across Kepler Station. Admiral Kronak was meeting with Karvan officers, explaining that the unusual scan readings were the result of equipment malfunctions. Dr. Flowingstream was speaking with Ashante scientists, assuring them that the impossible technology signatures or false data. Representatives from other species were being given similar explanations. The official story was spreading throughout the station. The human ship had been scanned normally. The readings showed primitive technology as expected. Any reports of advanced human capabilities were the result of equipment errors. Most people accepted this explanation. After all, it came from their most senior scientists and military officers. Why would they lie about something so important? But a few individuals, like Crix, remained skeptical. They had seen the impossible. Data with their own eyes. They had run their own tests and gotten the same results. And they found it hard to believe that such detailed and consistent false readings could be produced by random equipment failures. As the day progressed, Captain Elena Vasquez and her crew completed their trade negotiations and prepared to depart Kepler Station. They had no idea that their ship had become the center of a galaxy-wide conspiracy. They did not know that their technology had been discovered and that powerful forces were working to suppress that knowledge. Elena simply saw their successful trade mission as another routine stop on their journey through space. The Perseverance had carried them safely to Kepler Station and would carry them safely to their next destination, but unknown to Elena, her ship had already changed the galaxy. The impossible scan results were spreading in secret, shared by scientists and engineers who refused to accept the official explanations. With each passing hour, more people were learning the truth about human technology. And once that truth was released into the galaxy, there would be no way to contain it. The cover-up was beginning to crack. 3 days after the Perseverance left Kepler Station, Crix made a choice that would change the galaxy forever. He was sitting in his small quarters, staring at the portable storage device that contained the impossible scan data. For 3 days, he had carried the weight of what he knew. For 3 days, he had watched Dr. Zellick and the other senior scientists act as if nothing had happened, but Crix could not forget what he had seen. The human ship contained technology that defied every law of physics he had learned, and his superiors were lying about it. Crix activated his personal communication terminal and began composing a message. But this time, he was not sending it to other scientists on Kepler Station. This time, he was reaching out to the wider galaxy. The message was addressed to Dr. Zenith, a respected physicist who worked at the Galactic Science Institute on the planet Nexus Prime. Dr. Zenith was known throughout the galaxy for his work on advanced propulsion systems. More importantly, he was known for his honesty and his refusal to accept impossible claims without proof. Dr. Zenith, Crix wrote, I am sending you scan data that I believe you should see. I cannot explain what these readings mean, but I believe they are real. Please examine them with your own equipment and tell me what you think. Crix attached the scan data to the message and sent it before he could change his mind. Similar messages were being sent across the galaxy. Dr. Buzz had contacts at engineering firms throughout Corvan space. Dr. Ripple knew biochemists on dozens of Ashanti worlds. Professor Brightfeather had friends at universities across the galaxy. Each of them had been told that the scan data was false. Each of them had been ordered to delete it. But each of them had kept secret copies. And now, driven by scientific curiosity and a growing suspicion that they had been lied to, they were sharing that data with trusted colleagues throughout the galaxy. The response was immediate and shocking. Dr. Zenith ran the scan data through the most advanced analysis computers at the Galactic Science Institute. The results confirmed what Crix had found. The human ship contained technology that should not exist. Dr. Zenith immediately contacted his colleagues at other research institutions. Within hours, teams of scientists on dozens of worlds were analyzing the impossible data. And every single analysis came to the same conclusion: the scans were real on the planet Korvac Prime. Dr. Thane was studying the energy readings in his laboratory when his assistant rushed into the room. Doctor, the assistant said, you need to see this news report. Dr. Thane looked at the holographic display that his assistant activated. A news reporter was speaking from what appeared to be a space dock. This is reporter Zex from the Meridian system, the reporter said. I'm standing beside a human cargo ship that docked here yesterday. Based on information we have received from anonymous sources, we have conducted our own scans of this vessel. The reporter gestured to a team of technicians who were operating scanning equipment near the human ship. What we have found challenges everything we thought we knew about human technology. Dr. Thane watched in amazement as the news report showed scan results identical to what he had been studying in his lab. The human ship at Meridian showed the same impossible energy signatures, the same dimensional anomalies, the same technology that defied known physics. We have confirmed these results with independent scans, the reporter continued. This human ship, which appears primitive on the surface, contains technology that is more advanced than anything in our databases. The news report spread across the galactic communication networks like a virus. Within hours, similar reports were coming from other systems. Human ships were being scanned at dozens of locations across the galaxy, and every scan showed the same impossible results. On Kepler Station, Dr. Zelek watched the news reports with growing horror. The cover-up was falling apart. The information they had tried so hard to suppress was now being broadcast. Across the entire galaxy, his communication device chimed constantly with calls from government officials, military commanders, and senior scientists. Everyone wanted to know how this had happened. Everyone wanted to know why Kepler Station had failed to detect such advanced technology in a human ship. Dr. Zelek tried to maintain the official story. He told anyone who would listen that the scans were false, that equipment malfunctions had produced impossible readings, that there was no way humans could possess such advanced technology, but his explanations were becoming harder to believe. Too many independent sources were confirming the same results. Too many different types of scanning equipment were producing identical data. Admiral Kronak arrived at Dr. Zelek's office with a look of barely controlled rage. "The cover-up has failed," the Admiral said without greeting. "News reports are coming from every corner of the galaxy. Human ships are being scanned everywhere, and every scan confirms what we tried to hide." Dr. Zelek slumped in his chair. "How did this happen? We deleted all the scan data. We convinced the junior scientists that the readings were false." "Apparently. Not all of them believed us," Admiral Kronak replied grimly. "Someone kept copies of the data and shared them with outside contacts. Now the entire galaxy knows what we tried to hide." The Admiral activated a holographic display that showed news reports from across the galaxy. Dozens of different species were announcing that they had discovered advanced technology hidden in human ships. Scientists were calling it the greatest discovery in galactic history. Government officials were demanding explanations. "The Zephyrian Council is meeting in emergency session," Admiral Kronak continued. "The Corvin High Command wants answers. The Ashanti Collective is convening their Science Council. Every major government in the galaxy is trying to figure out what this means." Dr. Zelek watched the news reports with a sinking feeling in his stomach. "What do we tell them?" "The truth," Admiral Kronak said. "We have no choice now. We have to admit that humans possess technology that is far more advanced than anything we have developed." The admission was harder than either of them had imagined. For centuries, the Zephyrian Republic had prided itself on being the most technologically advanced civilization in the galaxy. The Corvin Empire had built its power on superior military technology. The Ashanti Collective had achieved greatness through their mastery of biological engineering. Now, they were being told that a species they had mocked as primitive actually possessed technology that made their greatest achievements look like toys on the planet Ashanti Prime. Dr. Flowingstream was meeting with the Science Council to discuss the implications of the discovery. The council chamber was filled with Ashanti scientists, their forearms gesturing gracefully as they debated what the human technology might mean. "If these scans are accurate," one council member said, "then humans have achieved something we thought was impossible. They have created technology that operates in multiple dimensions simultaneously." "But how?" asked another. "Our species has been developing biotechnology for thousands of years. We have created living ships that can heal themselves and adapt to any environment. How could humans, who have only been in space for decades, develop something so much more advanced?" Dr. Flowingstream had been studying the scan data for hours. The more she looked at it, the more impressed she became. "Perhaps," she said thoughtfully, "we have been thinking about technology in the wrong way." The council chamber grew quiet. As the other scientists waited for her to continue, "We have always assumed that technological advancement follows a predictable path," Dr. Flowingstream explained. "First you develop basic tools, then more complex machines, then advanced materials, then energy manipulation, and so on. We have judged human technology by this standard and found it lacking." She activated a holographic display that showed the human ship's scan results. "But what if humans have found a completely different path?" What if they have developed technology that does not follow our expected progression? One of the council members made a sound like flowing water, which indicated confusion. What do you mean? Look at these energy readings, Dr. Flowing Stream said, pointing to the display. The power source appears to exist in multiple dimensions at once. It generates massive amounts of energy, but somehow contains it in a space smaller than our smallest biocells. She changed the display to show the ship's hull composition. And these materials, they appear to change their properties based on what they need to do. When they need to be strong, they become stronger than our hardest metals. When they need to be flexible, they become softer than living tissue. The council chamber was completely silent now. Every scientist was staring at the impossible data. This is not technology as we understand it, Dr. Flowing Stream continued. This is something entirely new. Something that treats the laws of physics as suggestions rather than absolute rules. Similar discussions were taking place on worlds throughout the galaxy. Scientists, engineers, and government officials were trying to understand how humans had achieved something that seemed impossible. But while the alien species were struggling to comprehend the implications of the discovery, humans themselves were largely unaware of the chaos they had caused. Most human ships continued their normal operations, carrying cargo and passengers between human colonies and trading posts. Captain Elena Vasquez was piloting the Perseverance through hyperspace, heading toward their next destination when her communications officer received an unusual message. "Captain," Sarah Kim said, looking confused, "I'm getting a priority communication from the Galactic News Network. They want to interview us about our ship's technology." Elena frowned. "Our technology? What about it?" "They're saying that scan results from Kepler Station have revealed that our ship contains advanced technology that defies known physics." Elena looked at Marcus Chung, who shrugged. "Maybe someone made a mistake with the scanners," Marcus suggested. "Or maybe," Elena said thoughtfully, "someone finally figured out what we've been doing all these years." Sarah looked at her captain with surprise. "You mean the scans were accurate?" Elena smiled. "Sarah, there's a lot about human technology that other species don't understand. We've never tried to hide it exactly. We just never felt the need to show off." "But Captain," Sarah protested, "if our technology is really that advanced, why do we let other species treat us like we're primitive?" Elena looked out at the stars rushing past their ship. "Because being underestimated is often the best advantage you can have. While other species were busy building bigger weapons and faster ships, we were busy figuring out how to make the impossible possible." She turned back to her crew. "Besides, we've always believed that technology should serve people, not the other way around. We've never been interested in using our capabilities to dominate other species. We just wanted to explore the galaxy and make friends along the way." Marcus shook his head in amazement. "So, all this time, while the aliens were laughing at our primitive ship, we actually had technology that was more advanced than anything they had ever built." "Not more advanced," Elena corrected. "Different. We approach technology from a completely different perspective than other species. Where they see rigid laws and limitations, we see possibilities and opportunities." As the Perseverance continued through hyperspace, news of the human technology discovery continued to spread across the galaxy. The revelation was causing chaos in alien governments and scientific institutions. Everything they thought they knew about the balance of power in the galaxy was wrong. But for Elena and her crew, it was just another day of exploring the vast universe in their remarkable ship. A ship that looked like junk, but could do things that others considered impossible. The galaxy was about to learn that humans had a very different idea about what was possible and what was not. The Galactic Assembly had not held an emergency session in over 300 years. The last time had been during the Void War, when an unknown enemy had threatened to destroy all known civilization. Today, representatives from every major species in the galaxy gathered on the neutral world of Harmony Station to discuss a discovery that was equally threatening to their understanding of the universe The massive assembly hall buzzed with nervous conversation in dozens of different languages. Zephyrians whispered in their musical tones. Corvins rumbled like distant thunder. Ashanti flowed like water over rocks. Representatives from smaller species added their own voices to the chaos. At the center of the hall, a single human sat calmly. In the witness chair, Captain Elena Vasquez had been summoned to explain human technology to the assembled representatives of galactic civilization. She wore her simple captain's uniform and looked remarkably relaxed for someone who was about to address the most powerful beings in the galaxy. The speaker of the assembly, an ancient Zephyrian named Wisdom of Ages, called for silence. His voice carried clearly through the hall without amplification, a gift of his species' natural acoustics. We are gathered today to address a matter that challenges everything we thought we knew about technological development in our galaxy. Captain Vasquez, you represent the human species. We have invited you here to explain the impossible scan results that have been confirmed by dozens of independent sources across known space. Elena stood up and looked around the assembly hall. She saw fear in many of the alien faces, confusion in others. Some looked angry, as if she had somehow cheated them. Honored representatives, Elena began, her voice calm and clear. I understand that you have questions about human technology. I will do my best to answer them. Dr. Zellick rose from his seat in the Zephyrian section. He looked older than he had just a week ago, as if the stress of recent events had aged him years and days. Captain Vasquez, Dr. Zellick said, our most advanced. Scanners have detected technology in your ships that appears to violate fundamental laws of physics. Energy sources that exist in multiple dimensions. Materials that change their properties at will. Spaces that are larger inside than outside. How is this possible? Elena smiled. Dr. Zellick, with respect, I think you're asking the wrong question. You're asking how it's possible. But the real question is why you think it's impossible. Murmurs spread through the assembly hall. Admiral Kronak stood up from the Corvan section, his massive form towering over the other representatives. Captain, the admiral rumbled, our scientists have studied physics for thousands of years. We know what is possible and what is not. The technology your species appears to possess defies laws that have been proven and tested countless times. Has it? Elena asked. Or have you simply accepted limitations that don't actually exist? She walked to the center of the hall where a holographic projector could display images for all to see. May I show you something? Wisdom of Ages nodded. Please proceed. Elena activated the projector and displayed an image of a simple flower. This is a rose from Earth, my home planet. It's a very common flower. Nothing special about it according to human standards. The alien representatives looked confused. Dr. Flowing Stream spoke from the Ashanti section. Captain, we do not understand. This appears to be a basic biological organism. What does it have to do with your advanced technology? Everything, Elena replied. You see, this flower does something that your physics says is impossible. It takes simple materials from soil and air and water, and it transforms them into complex organic compounds. It captures energy from our sun and stores it in chemical bonds. It creates beauty and fragrance and life from nothing but basic elements. She changed the image to show the molecular structure of the rose. If I had tried to build this flower in a laboratory using your understanding of chemistry and physics, you would tell me it was impossible. The reactions required are too complex. The energy requirements are too high. The precision needed is beyond what any machine could achieve. The assembly hall was completely quiet now. Every representative was staring at the molecular display. But the flower doesn't know that it's impossible, Elena continued. It simply grows. It doesn't follow your rules about what can and cannot be done. It finds its own way to accomplish what it needs to accomplish. She turned off the projector and faced the assembly. That's the difference between human technology and yours. You study the universe and create rules about what is possible. Then you limit yourselves to working within those rules. But humans have always believed that rules are just starting points. Professor Brightfeather fluttered his wings nervously as he spoke from the Aviran section. Captain, are you saying that your technology works by ignoring the laws of physics? Not ignoring them, Elena corrected. Understanding them differently. You see physics as a set of limitations. We see it as a set of possibilities. You see barriers, we see puzzles to be solved. She gestured toward the alien representatives. Every one of your species has developed amazing technology by following the rules as you understand them. Zephyrian quantum matrices, Covan dark matter, weapons, Ashanti bioengineering, all incredible achievements. The representatives looked pleased by the recognition, but Elena continued. But you've also limited yourselves by believing that those rules are absolute. You've created boundaries in your minds that don't actually exist in the universe. Dr. Zellick stood up again. Captain, our scanning technology detected energy sources in your ship that generate power equivalent to a small star. How is this possible without destroying your ship or everyone on it? Elena nodded. That's a good question. The answer is that we don't generate that much power, we access it. Access it from where? Dr. Flowing Stream asked. From everywhere, Elena replied. The universe is full of energy. It's in the space between atoms. It's in the quantum foam that exists at the smallest scales. It's in the dimensional boundaries that separate one reality from another. Most species try to create energy. We just learned how to borrow it. She activated the projector again and showed a diagram of human ship technology. Our power systems don't violate conservation of energy. They just access energy that already exists, but that most people don't know how to reach. Admiral Cronach's voice was skeptical. And the materials that change their properties, how do you explain that? The same way, Elena said. Matter is just energy arranged in specific patterns. If you can access the underlying energy, you can rearrange the patterns. You can make materials that are hard when they need to be hard and soft when they need to be soft. The diagram changed to show the molecular structure of human ship hulls. Our hulls aren't made of metal that changes its properties. They're made of energy patterns that can shift between different configurations. Wisdom of Ages leaned forward in his chair. Captain Vasquez, you speak of accessing energy from other dimensions and rearranging matter at the molecular level as if these are simple tasks. How did your species develop such capabilities? Elena paused for a moment, choosing her words carefully. Honored speaker, humans have always been curious about the impossible. When other species told us that something couldn't be done, we asked, why not? When we encountered barriers, we looked for ways around them, over them, or through them. She walked closer to the assembly. But more importantly, we've never been afraid to be wrong. Every human breakthrough has come from someone who was willing to try something that everyone else said was impossible. We've built our entire technological development on the foundation of embracing failure and learning from it. Dr. Ripple spoke from her seat near the other Ashanti representatives. But Captain, surely there must be limits. Surely there are things that even human technology cannot accomplish. Elena smiled. Of course there are limits. We just haven't found them yet. And we're not particularly interested in looking for them. We're more interested in finding out what's possible. The assembly hall erupted in conversation as representatives discussed what they had heard. Some seemed excited by the possibilities Elena had described. Others looked worried about what it might mean for the balance of power in the galaxy. Wisdom of Ages called for silence again. Captain Vasquez, this assembly must discuss the implications of what you have shared with us. But before we do, I must ask one final question. Your species possesses technology that could easily dominate the galaxy. Your ships could destroy our fleets. Your capabilities could overwhelm our defenses. Why have you not used this power to conquer other species? Elena looked around the assembly hall at all the alien faces staring at her. Because conquest was never the point. We didn't develop this technology to hurt people or take over the galaxy. We developed it because we wanted to explore. We wanted to see what was out there. We wanted to meet new species and learn new things. She paused and smiled. Besides, being the most powerful species in the galaxy sounds like a lot of work. We'd rather spend our time discovering new wonders and making new friends. Admiral Kronak stood up slowly. Captain, are you saying that humans have no interest in expanding their territory or increasing their influence? We're interested in growing, Elena replied, but not in the way you might think. We want to grow in knowledge, in understanding, in friendship. We want to help other species discover what's possible for them too. Dr. Flowing Stream made the sound that indicated deep thought among her people. Captain, would humans be willing to share this technology with other species? Elena nodded. Of course, but not in the way you might expect. We can't just give you our machines and expect them to work for you. Our technology works because of how we think about problems. To use human technology, you would need to learn to think like humans. She gestured toward the assembly. You would need to stop seeing limitations and start seeing possibilities. You would need to be willing to try things that seem impossible. You would need to embrace failure as a learning opportunity rather than something to be avoided. Wisdom of Ages stood up from his chair. Captain Vasquez, this assembly will need time to consider what you have shared with us. The implications are ... significant. Elena bowed respectfully. I understand, honored speaker. If you have more questions, I'll be happy to answer them. The human diplomatic mission will remain available to discuss cooperation and friendship between our species. As Elena left the assembly hall, the representatives began heated discussions about what they had learned. Some argued that human technology was too dangerous to be shared. Others insisted that refusing to cooperate with humans would leave them behind as the galaxy moved into a new age. But all of them understood that everything had changed. The species they had mocked as primitive had quietly become the most advanced civilization in known space. Not through conquest or domination, but through curiosity and creativity, the galaxy would never be the same. In the days that followed, some species began sending their brightest scientists to study with human researchers. Others tried to develop their own versions of human technology. A few attempted to steal human secrets through espionage, but most gradually came to understand what Elena had tried to tell them. Human technology wasn't just about machines and energy sources. It was about a completely different way of thinking about what was possible. And that, more than any weapon or tool, was what made humans truly advanced. The age of human dominance had begun not through force, but through the simple act of refusing to accept that anything was truly impossible.